everyone. I'm Sandy Barr. I'm the chapter director for Sierra Club's Grand Canyon chapter, which is the Arizona chapter. And I want to thank you for joining us today to announce our 2023 environmental priorities for the Arizona Legislature and Governor. These priorities have been endorsed by 42 organizations to date, with more to come. And we think that these are priorities that have gone unaddressed for far too long. We can't afford to ignore the important issues that are affecting Arizona, including ensuring easy access to our democratic processes, acting on the climate crisis, ensuring more sustainable water policies that protect groundwater and rivers, maximizing the health of all Arizonans, and addressing the environmental injustice that burdens those most vulnerable in our communities, especially Black people, Indigenous people, and people of color. We must also open our ears to other than human voices, including those of future generations and endangered species. We urge Arizonans, and in particular our elected officials, to promote these priorities during the 2023 legislative session and beyond. And with us today to speak about these priorities are representatives from some of the 42 organizations that have endorsed them. And I'll just run through their names and then they'll introduce the person who comes after them as well. So we have Vasu Bandhu. He's the Faith Community Coordinator for Arizona Faith Network. Yara Marine, she's the Interior West Regional Director for Vote Solar. Nick Arnold, Arizona State Lead with Climate Cabinet Action. Melanie Beekman is the Executive Director for Arizona Interfaith Power and Light. Vanya Guevara, Advocacy Deputy Director for Chispa, Arizona. Ana Moore Almeida, she's the founder of Kids Climate Action Network. And yes, that's it. And without further ado, Vasu is going to speak about democracy.
Greetings from Arizona Faith Network. We, as diverse faith communities from all religions, come together to support the environmental priorities 2023. In collaboration with our partners from diverse organizations, we are dedicated to making the environmental priorities 2023 a concrete reality. We not only serve as individual faith communities working independently, but we serve with all religions: Jewish, Muslims, Hindus, Baha'is, Sikhs, Buddhists, Christians, working together. We work across interfaith to build the journey to environmental sustainable. We ask the Arizona Legislature and Governor to ensure access to democracy for all, the freedom to vote for all citizens. The democratic process must reflect and empower our diverse electorate. People of color must feel safe and welcome. So we ask for free and fair elections. And now I will share comments in Spanish. Nosotros, como comunidades religiosas diversas, una asociación interreligiosa en Arizona, nos unimos para apoyar las prioridades ambientales 2023. En colaboración con nuestros socios de diversas organizaciones, estamos dedicados a hacer realidad las prioridades. Nosotros no solo servimos como comunidades de fe individuales, sino que servimos todas las diversas religiones: judíos, musulmanes, hindús, bahá'ís, sikhs, budistas y cristianos, trabajando juntos por una colaboración interreligiosa. Por eso le pedimos al gobernador y a la legislatura que apoyen estas prioridades. And now, we will welcome Yara Marine, Interior West Regional Director for Vote Solar.
Hi everyone, thank you for joining us this afternoon. My name is Yara Marin, and I'm the Interior West Regional Director with Vote Solar. And we are here today to ask the Arizona Legislature and our Governor to pass legislation that will cut climate pollution and accelerate the growth to a clean energy future and transition that is already underway, but has always been in danger of failing to move fast enough to meet the decarbonization goals that scientists tell us we must meet in the coming decades. Arizona is considered the fourth fastest warming state in the country, and Phoenix is recognized as the hottest state in the U.S. according to States at Risk. These impacts threaten our lives, our community, and our economic health, particularly the lives of Black, Indigenous, and communities of color who are on the front lines of environmental pollution and climate change while being some of the least responsible parties. Our leaders need to ensure that Arizona is better prepared for the continued impacts of climate change by passing legislation to accelerate investments in clean energy, fully utilizing and leveraging the Inflation Reduction Act and bipartisan infrastructure law funding, and developing a climate action plan for Arizona to reduce the state's greenhouse gas emissions, and to effectively implement provisions from the IRA and the Justice 40 initiatives that require more resources be directed to communities that have suffered the disproportionate impacts of climate change. Arizona has proven its ability to lead in the nation in developing solutions for clean energy technology in a way that benefits an overall economy. We now have a critical opportunity with new infrastructure investments to open the doors for accelerating energy innovation even further. As one of the sunniest states in the country, Arizona is positioned to expand the state's clean energy portfolio, which is vital to creating homegrown jobs, powering our economy, and securing our energy independence. Infrastructure investments prioritized for rural or low-income communities and entities will benefit working people, small businesses, family ranchers, and farmers, all while putting money back into the pockets of hard-working Arizonans. The people of Arizona, my community, deserve the future that clean energy provides. Thank you again. Our next speaker is Nick Arnold with Climate Cabinet Action.
Thank you, Yara. My name is Nick Arnold, and I am the Arizona State Lead with Climate Cabinet Action. We are a national organization that supports state and local leaders to run, win, and legislate on the climate crisis. For the past few years, I've talked to thousands of voters, and they all share our vision for Arizona. They understand that we have potential for solar. They understand we have 300 days of solar a year, but they don't understand why it's not cheaper and easier for us to transition. Climate action, like climate change, touches every aspect of the Arizona economy. As a state on the front lines of water insecurity and extreme heat, we have the opportunity and the responsibility to build a climate resilient Arizona economy. From electrifying transportation and improving public transit to making our buildings energy and water efficient, Arizona families and businesses can all benefit from Arizona climate leadership and the billions in federal dollars available to transition efficiently and equitably. Under Governor Hobbs, President Peterson, and Speaker Toma, Arizona leaders have a once-in-a-generation opportunity to make our state a model for what a bipartisan, climate-resilient state can and should look like. As a born and raised Arizonan, I'm excited for this opportunity, and I'm looking forward to working with our leaders to build a sustainable future for all Arizonans who call this state home. And I'm excited to introduce Melanie Beichman, the Executive Director of Arizona Interfaith Power and Life.
Going to do a little mic check here. Okay, is that a little better? Okay. Little mid-conference mic check. I am Melanie Beichman with Arizona Interfaith Power and Light, here today representing people of faith and conscience who are called to be stewards of God's creation. You'll notice that many of the groups that have signed on to the environmental priorities are congregations. Faith communities across Arizona care for their neighbors in myriad ways, feeding the poor, welcoming refugees, housing the homeless. They also understand that as heat in Arizona intensifies, the climate crisis is having real effects on our neighbors right here in our state. heat-related illness and even death, drought that is already impacting communities, and dangerous wildfires. Last year, Phoenix had 22 days at 110 degrees or over, and these dangerous heat days are expected to increase. Maricopa County continues to break that grim record of heat-related deaths, with 378 lives lost last summer. It is the most vulnerable who suffer the most from extreme heat. Arizona Interfaith Power and Light joins this coalition in calling on the legislature and Governor Hobbs to address climate justice, to develop a climate resiliency plan so that Arizona is prepared for the impacts of climate change, to use the Inflation Reduction Act and bipartisan infrastructure law funding to invest in clean energy, invest in electric school buses and transit buses, and build a more robust electric vehicle charging infrastructure so electric cars will work for all Arizonans, even in rural areas. And to promote energy efficiency. That's our cheapest, cleanest resource. Lawmakers can give low-income communities and renters access to household energy efficiency programs that are already available. The climate crisis we face is not just environmental, political, or an economic issue. Caring for Arizona's air, water, and land, and protecting the vulnerable from the effects of the climate crisis are moral and spiritual imperatives. And now I'd like to introduce Vanya Rivera, who's with Chispa, Arizona.
Good afternoon, Vanya Guevara with Chispa, Arizona, and I'm here to talk about environmental justice. We really cannot talk about environmental justice without centering the experiences of people of color and climate change. Communities of color have especially high asthma rates. African American and Latinx children visit emergency departments for asthma care more often than white children. Black Americans are 2 to 3 times more likely to die from asthma than any other racial or ethnic group. 1 in 5 Latinx adults cannot afford their asthma medicines, and adults who didn't finish high school are more likely to have asthma than adults who graduated from high school or college. Water is life. Native American communities disproportionately lack access to safe water and wastewater disposal. Water contamination occurs more often in Native American water systems, and overall, tribal public water systems are twice as likely to violate health-based water quality regulations as non-tribal systems. There are more than 500 abandoned uranium mines throughout the Navajo Nation, and analysis of water supplies in the Navajo Nation found disproportionately high levels of arsenic and uranium. 15% of unregulated water supplies had high levels of arsenic, and more than 12% had high levels of uranium. We frequently hear about the disparate impacts of climate change on people in poorer nations, but not as much is said about the impacts right here at home. Researchers at the University of Arizona found that the Southwest region is a hotspot for physical climate change and for social vulnerability, with a clear climate gap between the rich and the poorer communities. Right here in our own backyards, we see a difference of 13 degrees of temperatures in wealthier communities than in underserviced neighborhoods. This is something that needs to be addressed immediately. We asked the Arizona Legislature and Governor to require the Arizona Department of Administration, in consultation with the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality, to ensure that all state agencies, boards, commissions, and other public bodies involved in decisions that may affect environmental quality adopt and implement environmental justice policies that provide meaningful opportunities for involvement of all people, regardless of race, color, ethnicity, religion, income, and education, and to really start with inviting these communities who are disproportionately impacted to the conversation to best make these changes. We further ask for additional legislation that defines overburdened communities as those with significant non-white, non-English speaking, or low-income populations, requires major polluters seeking air quality, waste, and water quality permits in overburdened communities to develop environmental justice impact statements with substantive, detailed, meaningful public input and real ADEQ oversight, including technical assistance to impacted communities, and empowers ADEQ to deny or condition permits due to disproportionate impacts based on the EGIS. And with that, I'm going to pass it on to Ana Moore Almeida, founder of Kids Climate Action Network.
Thank you, Vanya.
Hello everyone, my name is Anna Rose Moore Almeida. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm a civil engineering student at Arizona State University and have been an activist for more than a decade. I'm here to talk about what got me into this work, protecting wildlife and restoring their habitats. Arizonans love and enjoy our public lands. Public lands provide us with clean air and clean water. Arizona is blessed with roughly 28 million acres of federal public lands, including gems such as the Grand Canyon and the Petrified Forest. These lands are filled with unique habitats and biodiversity that are sometimes only found here in our precious state. These public lands are significant to the 22 tribal nations recognized in Arizona. Additionally, they contain a rich history of human occupation in Arizona. These fabulous lands also contribute significantly to Arizona's 20 billion plus tourism and outdoor recreation industries. According to the National Park Service, there were more than 6.3 million recreational visitors to the Grand Canyon National Park in 2018, who collectively spent $947 million in communities near the park, supporting 12,558 jobs and a cumulative benefit to the local economy of $1.2 billion. Likewise, according to the Arizona Office of Tourism, Arizona's warm weather and magnificent natural beauty made tourism the #1 export industry in Arizona in 2020. The protection of our public lands is critical to that natural beauty. In addition to the climate crisis, we also face an unfortunate extinction crisis. Habitat loss and climate change mean that about 1/3 to 1/2 of all species on this planet will face extinction. In Arizona, we have approximately 73 plants and animals that are on the federal endangered species list. Many of these species are threatened or endangered due to habitat loss, including the dewatering of streams, rivers, and riparian areas. We ask the Arizona Legislature and Governor to support strong protections for federal, state, and local public lands, including the provisions of Arizona the Beautiful proposal, and begin working with tribal nations, other relevant Arizona state entities and bodies, and the federal government to prioritize restoring tribal homelands. We also ask the state to establish a state-level endangered species program that will actively protect species not covered by the Federal Endangered Species Act. In addition, we ask the legislature to establish a State Environmental Policy Act requiring all government entities, local, state, etc., to assess the ecological impacts of proposed state or local government actions before committing to a course of action. We want the legislature to make these impacts known to the public and to propose means to reduce or eliminate adverse environmental impacts resulting from state or local government actions. We also ask that the state agencies work collaboratively with federal land management agencies to develop and fund wildlife connectivity in corridors. We take so much from this planet. We need to take a moment and give back to this special place that has allowed us to thrive as a species. Here's to an abundant wildlife and wild places in the new year. Thank you. I will now hand it back to Sandy Barr.
Thank you all. Well, last but not least, we want to talk about water. Arizona, we have a water problem. We have over-allocated surface waters, including the Colorado River. We are depleting groundwater, especially outside of active management areas in our state, but inside as well. And year after year after year after year, the Arizona legislature does nothing. In fact, does worse than nothing. Creates carve-outs and opportunities for pumping more groundwater, or creates some kind of house of cards that makes people think that we've addressed the issues, such as they did with the drought contingency plan. We need to get serious about water issues in Arizona, and that's why we're asking the legislature and governor to pass and sign bills to measure and limit groundwater pumping throughout Arizona, and especially outside active management areas and in areas where river flows are affected. Rather than merely trying to import water from outside Arizona, such as the harmful desalination proposal that former Governor Ducey pushed on his way out the door, we ask that our leaders examine the sustainability of the state's current growth and development patterns, current agricultural practices, and identify and take full advantage of opportunities for deeper conservation. We also ask the legislature and governor to amend Arizona law to provide for ecological flows in our rivers. We cannot continue to just pump them dry. We've lost a lot in Arizona already, and we need to ensure that those rivers flow for other species, but for us as well. We and our rivers and streams obviously are threatened by overpumping as well as climate change. The legislature should also modify the surface water quality program to require that ephemeral waters, and those are basically our desert washes, the waters that don't flow year-round, that they be included in the surface water quality protection program. They need to provide funding to address the serious backlog of impaired waters. These are waters that don't meet water quality standards and haven't for a couple of decades, and that they invest funds to ensure safe drinking water for all, including to monitor and limit PFAS contamination. The governor and legislature have a great opportunity to turn the tide, to reverse course on this ignoring climate, ignoring water, ignoring species extinction, and undermining democracy. They have an opportunity to ensure environmental justice. Now is a good time for them to announce their intentions and to get started. And we're all here to work with them to make Arizona a better place for all of us, including other species. Thank you. Oh, and we can take questions. No questions? Okay.
Hi, I'm Cameron with Cap Times. I was just wondering, for future water protection and finding new ways to get water, if the Sierra Club doesn't support desal, what are they pushing besides conservation to get more water?
Well, the main thing that we're pushing is conservation. I mean, obviously we can do a lot. We haven't even really tried. We've just heard, oh, well, we can't get there by changing what we do with agriculture. We've heard we can't get there by changing what we do with development. We think that we need to focus intensely on that instead of just approving more developments that are depending on groundwater that isn't going to be there in the future, and continuing to allow thirsty crops like alfalfa to eat up. I mean, more than 70% of our water in Arizona is used by agriculture. There's no reason that it has to be that much, and that we can't move forward with significant improvements in irrigation, but also in what we're growing in this state. And it's been a free-for-all, and so, for far too long. So our view is efficiency, conservation, and really looking seriously at the way we're growing and developing, including the kinds of industry that we invite into our state. For far too long, we've said, oh, we've done great with water, come on in, and it's only recently that we've seen a little bit where the state is actually admitting there's a water problem, and that's the first step, right? To admit you have a problem, so now we need to do something about that. And from our perspective, it's not to rob water from other areas or to make our problem a problem for future generations, people in other countries, or the species that inhabit the Gulf of California.
Okay.
Sorry, that was a long answer. I feel strongly about that one. Any other? All right, well, we're available. We're going to send out a news release and it'll have contact information if you want to reach out to anyone else. Thanks so much.
Hey, Sandy, does the news release have all the things you guys talked about?
It has